Welcome to the Cowbell Kingdom Road Reaction Postgame Show, where the Sacramento Kings finally win one. They pull out a 113 to 106 victory over the Charlotte Hornets. In Charlotte, they snapped their four-game losing streak. They improved to 2-4 on this season-long 8-game road trip, which has been absolutely brutal. I am James Ham. Joining me, as always, on the Road Reaction Postgame Show, Mr. Rui Thomas. Say hello, Rui.
Hello.
There is Rui. All right. The Kings figure out a way to win in crunch time. This was kind of a weird feel. They had a couple of big leads, 8-point leads in the fourth quarter. They just kept letting those leads go away, even at one point dropping an 8-point lead and going down by one. But DeMarcus Cousins has a big fourth quarter, finishes with 10 points in the fourth quarter. Ben McLemore goes for 13 in the fourth quarter, 27 overall. This was a game where they kept clawing their way back in. Rui, what were your thoughts on the fourth quarter and especially the victory in the fourth quarter tonight?
Well, we saw DeMarcus Cousins' lights, switch on his head because he was struggling, badly tonight. He was 2 for 8 in the first quarter and finished the half 2 for 10. Didn't score a point in the third quarter, but then, we saw him score 6 straight. That got the Kings on an 8-0 run late, and he finished with 10 for 10, perfect 4 for 4 from the field. So he was a huge factor on offense and defense. And then, McLemore, he found his groove tonight after, going up and down for the last few games. His 13 points were really big. The Kings shot 60% in the fourth quarter, and while they had 4 turnovers, you can't really complain going 60% and added 2 of 5 3-point shooting. Played a little bit of defense as well against the Hornets, holding them to 40% in that final quarter.
Check that out. An actual strong performance in the fourth quarter. Let's get to some of these numbers. Rudy Gay was spectacular for almost the entire night tonight. He even had a big shot down the stretch. One of those, oh no, oh no, oh yes baskets where he took a fall away like 18-footer with guys draped all over him. 26 points, 9 of 17 shooting. Rudy Gay has been blowing up. He's averaging almost 29 points a game over his last 4. He's averaging 23.7 under George Karl in 11 games. He definitely is finding his groove with this new head coach. I even saw Aaron Brewski mention on Twitter that Rudy Gay is becoming Carmelo Anthony, but a better version, and that kind of caught me off guard. What are your thoughts on Rudy Gay as the new Carmelo Anthony in George Karl's system?
Well, I can see a little bit similar style of play because they both like the ball on the elbow, and they'll both take it down to the block, and they both love to shoot a lot. It's hard to argue that. When you compare anyone to Carmelo Anthony, you hope that you're talking about their offense and not their defense. But Gay's defense, it's been middling, I would say, but he shows up for moments. Tonight, he allowed Michael Kidd Gilchrist to go off. He had a season high 22 points on 9 of 11 shooting, I believe, or no, 9 of 12 shooting. So you want to see improvement from there. But Gay, he hit some big shots down the stretch. He hit the game that basically put the game away. One of those isolation plays that have been gone so wrong for the Kings this year. I guess you have to call it a compliment.
Yeah, it seems to me that Rudy Gay, when he is the only guy trying to score in crunch time, then you're in trouble. If he's a guy that's part of a team that's scoring down the stretch, like what we saw tonight where, of course, Ben McLemore, DeMarcus Cousins, and then Rudy Gay is another guy, is not just the only guy, then he actually is very productive in that situation. Situational basketball, he's not been good with Sacramento Kings. He came into the Kings as a guy known for his ability to hit big shots in crunch time, and that's just not been the case. He has missed countless baskets in crunch time for the Kings. So tonight it was a good game for Rudy Gay, and again, it's been a really good stretch for Rudy Gay, and we're seeing him kind of explode in this system. You need high-end talent. Rudy Gay is high-end talent. He hit a hook shot and got fouled in the lane in the fourth quarter. That was pretty spectacular. Maybe a generous call, I don't know. But definitely a strong performance by Rudy. DeMarcus Cousins, he picks up his 39th double-double of the season, finishes with 20 points and 14 rebounds. To me, this was going to be an ugly post-game show if they lost this game, because I thought that DeMarcus Cousins throughout most of this game loafed. He loafed a lot. He didn't really try that hard. He didn't even look like he was really into it. But then he got popped in this game. He went to set a pick for Rudy Gay, and Michael Kidd-Gilchrist not only went through the pick, but lifted his elbow up a little bit and caught DeMarcus. DeMarcus did a little bit of an acting job, but I thought that kind of got him going. And then we saw sort of the outburst from DeMarcus. Man, he's got so much talent, and it did help the Kings that Al Jefferson went down in this game in the third quarter, didn't come back. But Cousins, again, 39th double-double. We talked about McLemore a little bit. He scores 27 points, 10 of 16 shooting, 3 of 4 from behind the arc. Huge in the fourth quarter. He had a 4-point play where he hammered a ball down, got fouled, and then Lance Stevenson picked up a tech. And, of course, McLemore is a great free throw shooter. He knocked down both free throws and really helped the Kings stretch open. I think at that point he gave the Kings an 8-point lead, which they quickly squandered yet again. But still, a very strong performance by McLemore. What were your impressions on Ben tonight? Because he's been having such an up and down stretch here.
Oh, well, thankfully the Kings kept feeding him the ball because he started off hot. He went 4 for 4, missed his next 4 shots, but, he kept gunning. Definitely wasn't afraid to take those long jumpers. Went to the rack, challenged Gerald Henderson. I mentioned his disappearing acts in the second half, which have plagued him the entire year, and have really been the model of his inconsistency. The Kings, made a point to give him the ball, and he definitely responded in that fourth quarter.
Yeah, I thought he did respond well in that fourth quarter. And, another guy who's been responding well is Ray McCallum. Ray McCallum tonight, the offensive numbers aren't gaudy. He has a rough shooting night. He goes just 1 of 7 from the field, 2 of 4, 4 or 5 from the line, scores 6 points. But he has 9 assists, 4 rebounds, 9 assists, and 0 turnovers. A tremendous game from McCallum when it comes to turnovers, especially when you consider that Andre Miller came off the bench, had 7 points, 7 assists, but 4 turnovers. A kind of a sloppy game. The Kings did a nice job, only 12 turnovers tonight. Well, 13 total as a team, but 12 turnovers, and 4 of those came from Mr. Andre Miller. 4 came from DeMarcus Cousins. Also, let's see, Carl Landry just keeps getting the starts now, and he looks like he's starting to get back into game shape. Again, I'm not quite sure why he needs to get into game shape now, because there's something, I don't know, less than 20 games left in the season, and he should be in good health since he really hasn't been injured this season. But he looks like he is playing his way back into shape. He looks solid tonight. He needs to do a better job on the rebounding. Again, just 3 rebounds, but he's not a great defensive rebounder. We've known that his entire career. He's a better offensive rebounder. Tonight, 2 offensive boards, 1 defensive board. It's kind of typical for Carl Landry. Also, Jason Thompson's kind of found a home off the bench, and I know he kind of likes the role of bench specialist because for some reason this starting unit just won't pass to Jason Thompson. And in the second unit, he's a guy who does get some looks. So tonight, Jason Thompson, he plays solid. 7 points, 7 rebounds in 14 minutes. I mean, that's productive. That's some productive time. 7 points and 7 rebounds for Omri Caspi off the bench, and that pretty much rounds out the scoring along with Andre Miller's 7 points. So not a horrible bench production tonight. No Nik Stauskas again. What are your thoughts on Nik Stauskas not getting any PT tonight, Mr. Rui Thomas?
Well, perhaps George Karl was worried about the opposing guards on Charlotte, since Gerald Henderson was really active tonight. He finished with 17 points and 11 assists on nearly 50% shooting. We also saw Lance Stevenson have a good game for once. You mentioned his mental miscue that surrendered that 4-point play to McLemore, but he finished with 11 points. Yeah, it was sad. 11 points, 5 for 10 shooting for him. Added a free throw, and we saw Kemba Walker out there playing his first game since mid-January, I believe. The Hornets have a really nice set in the backcourt because you have Mo Williams starting for now, We saw him matching up with McCallum, and then we saw Andre Miller playing against Kemba most of the night, which probably isn't ideal. George Hall probably doesn't want to see that. May have led to some of those turnovers for Miller. So the Hornets, they're really talented. They have a really talented roster, but so many injuries this year really throw off their season.
Yeah, the injuries. This is a team. I look at them and they're very similar to the Kings in certain situations. I mean, they are a much better defensive team than the Kings. But if you really look at this roster, it almost looks like a hodgepodge of players that are just thrown together. And I felt that way about Sacramento Kings for a while. You've got Al Harrington, who anchors your post in a similar way that DeMarcus Cousins does. You've got some nice players like Kemba Walker who provide a lot of scoring. Kind of in the same way that Rudy Gay does. You got some bench players, but realistically, this team, it just feels funky. They are one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the league by a long shot. We've known that for a while. Adding Mo Williams at the trade deadline was actually a very nice move for them. Especially when they were considering Ramon Sessions, which I don't think that's gone over well for Washington either. But let's get to our three keys to the game. Why don't you take this first one, Rui? A hint of defense. What do you got for me?
Well, the Hornets coming in, they struggle to score, especially when they're missing Jefferson or Walker. I mean, they had them both tonight, but they came in tonight 28th in the league in points per game, and despite the names you mentioned, the hodgepodge or mismatch of talent, they haven't really been able to get together. And Lance Stephenson's been the poster child of that. So, the Kings and Hornets went toe to toe. They're shooting 42% through the half. They're both the Kings were 4 of 11 from three, and I think the Hornets were 4 of 10. But the Kings, using their expertise at drawing fouls, had a large lead in shooting free throws tonight. And then, the Kings kind of let off the gas on defense, allowed the Hornets to shoot 56.3% in the third quarter, which allowed the Hornets to grab that early lead in the fourth. But, that 40% Hornets shooting performance in the fourth quarter, a large part, well, with Jefferson missing and, the Kings playing aggressive defense.
Yeah, I thought that the Kings played really well defensively, except for that third quarter where the wheels fell off the bus. I mean, they allowed a subpar offensive team to score over 30 and a quarter. But then again, they did lock down. They played solid during the fourth quarter when things got a little faster paced. They controlled the tempo. I think they scored 35 in the fourth quarter. So, yeah, I thought it was a solid defensive effort. Let's get to our second key to tonight. And our second key for the game is ball control. Very solid game, ball control for the Kings. Again, 13 total team turnovers. We already talked about this. 4 for Andre Miller, 4 for DeMarcus Cousins, 2 for Rudy Gay, and then 1 each for Derek Williams and Ben McLemore. That performance is, I'm just going to keep harping on it. 9 assists, 0 turnovers by Ray McCallum. Ray McCallum is doing exactly what this team needs. And to be honest with you, defensively, he played really well too until late in this game when I don't even think he was in the game when Mo Williams started to get hot. But early on, he had held Mo Williams in check for a good portion of this game. Mo Williams is a tough guy to guard, a very good shooting guard, a guy who likes to take you to the hole, does some really nice stuff. So what else do you got on ball control? Anything stand out to you, Rui?
You mentioned McCallum's stellar assist-turnover ratio. I think it helps being a coach's son. I'm sure his dad gave him the paddle, whenever he had a bad turnover performance in high school or college. The Kings, yeah, I mean, you got to walk away from this game smiling, considering they've been turning the ball over at an alarming rate, especially under George Karl. In the first and third quarters, they only lost 2 turnovers apiece, which is you can't really ask for much more than that. They had a quarter high 5 in the second. They lost 4 in the fourth quarter, but very good job. They're making lots of really tough passes too tonight, like cross-court passes, bounce passes, and they're really on point. And I'd be happy with that.
All right, let's get to our third key. Ben's bounce back. McLemore, 27 points, 10 of 16 shooting, 3 of 4 from behind the arc. Huge fourth quarter. This kid has just been so inconsistent, and you can sort of feel for him. He's struggling. Why don't you break down some of the struggles that you've seen? Because again, you went through and broke down the numbers here, but second half of game struggles. That's where Ben McLemore's really hurt himself over the last couple of weeks. What do you got?
Definitely. I mean, you could even say second half of the season because in the first half was his breakout campaign really since becoming a pro, and then he had his January disappearing act that you highlighted, which really got him out of the rookie sophomore game running. On this road trip, he's been all over the place. He scored 9 points against the Spurs, and then he went scoreless against the Magic when Oladipo went off. He had the game where he scored 17 points in the first half against Miami, but then he only scored 3 points in the second half. And then Atlanta, I mean, he wasn't the only player to do really bad, but he went 4 for 16 from the field. Tonight, the Kings kept the hot hand. They kept him hot. They kept feeding him, and he responded definitely. It's going to help his confidence moving forward. And you mentioned Stauskas earlier. I forgot to say that McLemore was so effective tonight. There really was no need to play Stauskas.
That's a very good point, Rui. No need to play Stauskas. I mean, I agree. I thought it was slightly strange that at one point we saw Omri Caspi playing the two-guard position. But in a game like this, I guess you do have to ride the hot hand. The hot hand was certainly Ben McLemore. I mean, he played 41 minutes. That leaves only 7 minutes for someone else to play that position. So whether it's Omri Caspi getting a sniff or it's Stauskas getting a sniff at that position, I don't really think that it matters that much. All right, so Rui, do you have any final thoughts after this successful evening for the Sacramento Kings?
Well, they got the monkey off their back as far as the road woes, and they're going to head into Philadelphia on Friday, which would be pretty interesting. You'd assume the Kings won't, accept losing to Philadelphia, but, crazier things have happened this year.
Crazier things have happened. The Sacramento Kings have figured out ways to do all kinds of silly things throughout this season, so you just never really know what's going to happen next. All right, so that's going to do it for this edition of the Cowbell. Oh, wait. Have we talked about MVPs? My bad.
No.
That's not going to do it for this edition of the Cowbell Kingdom Road Reaction Post-Game Show. Let's get to MVPs. Who do you got for MVP?
Sheesh. Well, there's a few options to pick from the Kings, which is something new. I mean, it's hard to go against McLemore, but then again, Rudy Gay hit the big game winner. I might roll with DeMarcus Cousins because coming into the fourth, he was struggling for sure, and he took over the boards, and the 10 points going further from the line, you can't do any better than that.
Yeah, I'm going to go with McLemore. I mean, to me, the Kings, when they don't have a two-guard, they're not very good. When they don't have any production from that position, and I mean, it really is. It's been the last couple of years. Last season was just atrocious, especially early on. I mean, between McLemore and Marcus Thornton, just like withering up and dying on the vine, you never really knew what you were going to get. Most nights it was 4-on-5 basketball. We talked about that a lot last year. This year, it hasn't happened nearly as often, but there are a lot of games where they don't get production, and when you don't get production from that shooting guard position, it really hurts the rest of this team. McLemore right now is the only pure shooter that this team has that is playing consistently. Again, Stauskas is a pure shooter, but he hasn't been a pure shooter this season, and he's not playing consistent minutes anyways. So they really have to have McLemore have a good game in order to win. He opens up everything. His shooting, especially his aggressive shooting, I saw him shoot in transition tonight. I liked it. Him coming off screens, I like. Him going at the rack is incredible. Last year he couldn't finish to save his life. This year it's like watching like a human highlight reel. The kid has just got so much potential, and I mean, he could be an all-star in a couple of years if he can put it all together. We'll see. I mean, it's going to take a little while. Keep in mind, folks, he played 1 year of college basketball. He played 1 year really of high school basketball. He's very young. He just turned 22, but he's a young 22. He's more like a 17 going on 18, 22. So if that makes any sense to you. All right, well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Cowbell Kingdom Road Reaction Postgame Show. We will be back on Friday with another program. It will be another late program, but we will fire it up probably around the 9 o'clock hour, and the Kings win 113 to 106. They improved to 2-4 on their 8-game road trip. George Karl now 4-7 as the head coach of the Sacramento Kings. This game gives them the opportunity to get back in sort of the winning mode, especially with a beatable team coming up on Friday. I could easily see this road trip going to 3-4 with a decider on coming later in the week. So I am James Ham. Say goodnight, Rui.
Good night.
He is Rui Thomas. Thank you for tuning in to the Cowbell Kingdom Road Reaction post-game show. Good night now.